You're listening to the Cynic Radio Podcast. Now, your hosts, Igri and Cynic.
Hey now, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Cynic Radio Podcast. I'm your co-host, Cynic, and with me, as always, a man with more colorful socks than a bus full of teenagers, Igri. And joining us once again, from out in front of our local Radio Shack, our good friend Julez. On this week's show, we're going to talk about HBO's standout hit, Westworld. We're also going to touch on the sort of rapey and slightly creepy movie Passengers. We are the Cynic Radio Podcast, and we will wake you out of your hibernated state against your will. Alright, we're going to spend some time today talking about episode 1 of Westworld, the original. The previews for this show were strong. You look at the powerhouse cast, and rumors have it that HBO has spent over $100 million on this show. IG, I'm going to throw it out to you first. What were your expectations going into it? I mean, did you see any of the previews? Were you psyched for the show?
I was psyched for the show, yeah. I saw quite a bit of the previews. I was psyched. I was worried. The original movie for this is a so-so movie for me. It's okay. It's one of those things where I think it's important in sci-fi for Westworld to have existed, but it was a strange movie at the time. But what it looked like they were doing here on HBO looked so interesting that I really wanted to see it, and the cast that they were showing in the previews looked amazing. I was excited. I had a little bit of pause, but I was ready for this to come because it looked like it was going to be amazing.
No, I was completely late getting on board. I had zero expectations. I didn't even realize it was actually a movie until halfway through watching the season. I had no idea that it had even been a movie before. And I did see a preview for it maybe the week before it was to premiere, and I thought, oh, this looks very interesting. So I was excited to start watching it as soon as it came out because it did definitely give a good preview.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, you can't go wrong with HBO. They've got a great track record with shows. Recently, they've been stumbling, especially when it comes to things like Vinyl. It didn't launch very well, but I was excited for the premise. Old West, Anthony Hopkins, passing from Crichton to Nolan. I really think that they did a good job amping up the excitement for it. You know, there was a pretty good advertising campaign. The original, do you think HBO has their next big hit on their hand?
Quite possibly. I don't think this holds up to Game of Thrones level yet. I think it's got potential. So far, this just doesn't have quite that hook. I don't think right now Western-themed things aren't pushing as hard as more fantasy-themed things. That's why like Harry Potter movies and Lord of the Rings movies and everything have been selling so well. I mean, they made 3 Hobbit movies when they should have made 1, but they all made money. They keep looking for things to make in the Harry Potter universe, but they're all making money. Even Star Wars, being a sci-fi fantasy, is making money. This is more Western themed, even though it's really not Western, it's sci-fi. The look of it has so much Western theme in it that I think it's not grabbing the people it should grab, because I don't think people understand Westworld isn't like a planet out there that still exists in the Old West. It's a creation. It's a theme park for people to go live in that. I hope it picks up bigger because this is a great show, and visually this show is stunning.
I tend to go off a lot of pop culture stuff, and I feel like once you start seeing articles on it on BuzzFeed or Huffington Post, things like that, whenever I'm going through and I start just seeing full articles dedicated to it, I'm like, oh, there's some hype around this show. So I've actually seen a lot of those articles, so I feel like it's definitely catching on way more than obviously like Vinyl, or like I never saw anything like that on that. Not to the level like Egg said of Game of Thrones, but I think it's catching its fan base for sure.
Well, it did come out of the box with initial view of 3.3 million people, which outperformed the first couple episodes of Game of Thrones, which were only around 2 million. Do you think Westworld can be as big as Game of Thrones, Ig?
I think it can. I think part of the thing is how they were able to get that many views is from the strength of shows like Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones by itself, I think, raised the subscription base of HBO. People wanted to see it. anybody that was seeing it was talking so highly about it that was pushing subscribers into HBO. And then when a new show comes out, people are immediately ready to jump on board and take a look.
Game of Thrones is like really at the top of the heap when it comes to amazing, awesome shows. I really feel like it's hard to compare anything to Game of Thrones because in my world, nothing really stands out that high. It's just the pinnacle of awesomeness. But I definitely think Westworld could be, it could definitely be up there for HBO. I mean, for sure. Especially since Game of Thrones is going to probably be going off here, you know, in a few seasons, barring any sequels or whatever is going to come after it. But I think it could definitely take its mantle.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping for a prequel Game of Thrones series. If they have to end the original, I really want more content in that world. They went back to The Well. The same guy that composed the Game of Thrones theme also composed the opening for this. Really creepy, really visually stunning right out the box. I was really impressed with it.
And the opening, the way that it was filmed or the way they generated it reminded me a lot of Daredevil on Netflix. Just how they presented it. But the Daredevil Netflix opening is so great on its own. But I really liked the opening for this and what they're displaying. And the music is very apropos.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I agree. The music's amazing.
Did you catch the player piano versions of Black Hole Sun and Paint It Black?
Yeah, and I think they were done so well. And because they were totally in that Western piano style, that old player piano style. But they were catchy. And you had to know. I mean, this is where we fit real well, Cynic. You and I, such big music fans, and when they put things like that in there, that just grabs us by the heart and pulls us deeper into the episode.
Yeah, I did. I was like, wait a minute. This is oddly familiar.
Well, not only that, it gives you a sense, too, that this whole thing's happening either, right now or in the future, where it kind of gives it a sense of realism where, they could just play some sort of generic Western song or they play something that grabs your attention. They dig pretty deep into this a few times in the series, and I don't know who's picking the music, but they have amazing taste. We open up, and why do you think that whenever they do a scene where they bring a host in for diagnostics, him or her, they interview them naked? Why do you think they do that, Ig?
Perversions? No, I think honestly the reason they're doing that is they have gone through initial diagnostics where they plug in whatever port to whatever they plug them into.
I wonder where the ports are.
Well, I think these are fully functioning androids, so they're probably not where we think they are, which is a good thing. I think they run them through diagnostics, and they have additional costumes for them, so they're kind of run through a cleaning process to bring in to make sure that they're functioning properly and everything, and then they set them down, run through their interview, because part of their diagnostic system is that they can answer. You can ask them questions, and they can answer. That being said, I think that's why. The other reason being why is because this is HBO, and they can. I think some of the nudity that HBO uses in many of their series is because they're HBO, and they can.
I agree with Egg. I think they're generically just robots. So despite looking like humans or whatever, they're generically robots. That's why they just bring them in, in their true form. And there's no need to have actual clothes on them. But even though they are generic robots, like in that first episode, you see that Elsie, leans in on Clementine. Hope I'm not getting ahead of myself here. And so there is an attraction there. Even though they're generic robots, there is still that fundamental attraction.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you both. I think that it dehumanizes them as well. So you realize that you're working with something that it isn't exactly human, and also probably it makes them stand out in cases later, in the possible case of trying to escape. They're probably not going to know enough to grab clothes so they can fit in, so that would probably out them as well if they try to kind of bolt for it. Your initial thoughts on Teddy. Did you believe he was a guest or a host?
I think also what threw me off was he was coming in on the train, and it seemed as though that's how the actual, guests were coming in was through the train. They were talking about the newcomers, and then it showed onto him. So I think it definitely threw me because he was on the train with them.
I did too. I thought he was a guest. I thought it would be weird to have those type of interactions that were happening in this show between two hosts, because it didn't really leave a gap for a guest to enter into what they were doing. I can see why they would be hosts at that point, because those kind of things would probably have to be happening somewhere. But in what I would assume is a theme park like this, where you can buy some insanely priced ticket to go and live out whatever fantasy you want to go live out, taking people out of play just to make things feel real everywhere seems weird. I thought he was a guest. I was very surprised when I found out that he was a host.
I agree. He seems to be the only one that they allowed to do that. It showed the intricacies of the park, because he would interact, ongoing dialogue between him and Maeve about morality. So it's neat how they kind of interact with each other. I think it was more just a setup for the swerve with the Man in Black. The Man in Black, did you perceive him to be a guest or a host?
And again, that one was really confusing for a while, but I really had to go guest. And the reason I had to go guest is because he was so erratic, and I couldn't fathom them putting an erratic host that erratic, just for the pure danger potential, because it's one of those things where any theme park, part of their thing has got to be safety, and I didn't foresee it being any different for Westworld. That being said, Man in Black, Ed Harris is amazing in this episode and in this show. He is so good.
I was just going to say that. He is phenomenal. He's one of my favorite actors in everything he's in. He knows how to bring it every single time. And he is erratic in this, but then you also have the weird guys with the milk, and so they seem just as erratic, but they're hosts.
Yeah, I definitely believe the Man in Black was a guest from the word go. The interactions with him and Teddy, I wasn't sure if it was like a guest-on-guest conflict, because I didn't see Teddy as a host right out of the box. Just the design in the initial town, the train ride in, everything you see, it looks vastly expensive, but at $40,000 a day, they've got to be making money on the endeavor, right?
You'd hope they'd make a little bit of money, $40,000 a day, but I mean, it is really happening, and really anything you want to do. I mean, yes, they are kind of pre-programmed things built in to try and entice guests into adventures, but they don't have to pick any of them. They can do whatever they want. If they just want to go sit in the bar, drink, and go with the virtual prostitutes and do whatever they want to do, that's fine too. And they know they're not going to bring home the HIV.
Once Teddy and the Man in Black had their conflict, and it was revealed who was playing what role, he drags Dolores off into the barn and kind of closes the door. Do you believe he raped Dolores in that scene?
Oh, for sure. I think yes, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, there was no reason to really do anything that he was doing without, going through to rape her, because why else was he dragging her in and slamming the door shut?
The theoretical question here is it rape when they are not human?
Well, I think so, because she was still fighting it. Whether she's human or not, she's a human-like entity, and she was still fighting it.
But they're self-aware based on programming. They're not real.
It's almost like role play rape.
I'm going to go with rape.
I mean, and the thing is that it's allowed in that world, because it's one of the things that they set up that you can go do.
Oh, yeah, you can do anything. Obviously, you can murder people in there, so why not rape people?
But you're not murdering people, you're shooting a robot.
So your argument then is you're not raping a person, so it's still not rape?
Well, I'm saying it's not rape because even the guests have to know that they're allowed to do these things to a robot. It might change your mentality and what you're willing to do based on that's not a person. It just looks like a person, but it's not a person. As a guest, I would think that some of these people might think that these aren't people, so if I shoot one or kick one or spit on one or do whatever I do to one, it's not a bad thing because they're not people. I get to act in a movie, basically, that stars me, that I don't get a film of later, but I get to be in this.
you're talking about coming into a world where you're allowed to sort of act out every fantasy and it's okay. But if you go into a world like this and all of a sudden you're like, oh, great, I can go rape someone now. I mean, like, that's...
Well, it might not be, oh, good, I can rape somebody now, but whatever story you're taking part in pulls you into a place where that presents itself as a possibility, then that might be something that, because they're not people, you may be more comfortable in doing. Not that you're a natural rape is on my mind kind of person.
Yeah, but if it's in the back of your mind, I mean, intent is everything. If anything, all you're doing is revealing your true self. Like, well, if it was okay to rape in the world, then this is what I would be doing.
Again, I guess it's just the moral question of, if they're not people, is it rape?
I think it's rape.
I'm not saying it's not rape.
There's my answer.
I'm not saying it's not rape, but while I'm presenting the opposite viewpoint, I'm not saying it's not rape. I'm saying that...
Yeah, you're playing devil's advocate.
Right, I'm saying that there is the possibility that some of these people don't think of it as rape because they're not people.
Right. If you were on trial,
they're not even horses. You
Right.
know, they're not living beings. They're not anything.
In a show of this cast is just a murderer's row of great actors. They tapped Jeffrey Wright to play Bernard, who I don't know if you saw Boardwalk Empire or not, but he spent a season or two as the antagonist on there. The guy is absolutely amazing as an actor.
I definitely agree with you. I know he's been in something else I've seen before. I did not see Boardwalk Empire actually, but I thought, I don't know, he's just this subtle, great...
He's been in a bunch of things. He's 2 of the Hunger Games movies. He was in Casino Royale, the first new spinoff of the James Bond movies. A great actor. He's so strong, and he just fits in this role in particular. I think he fits in this role better than anything he's done previously. He's been very good on other things, but this suits him so well.
Yeah, I hated him as Dr. Zeiss, but he's a great character and just so deep. And there's a great plot twist with him down the road. So far, through the first episode, Ig, who was your favorite host?
Ooh, favorite host. I'm going to have to go with Tandy Newton. Tandy Newton's role in this as Maeve Millay, she was the head mistress, the head call girl, as it were, in the bar. And just how she interacts with the other hosts, with the guests. She's an amazing actress. She's very expressive, and she also has this look like you're not sure where she's going. You're not sure what she's going to do, but she is my favorite host. She's far and away the most interesting host, I think, in the show, and I don't think she gets enough time on the screen.
I totally agree. I mean, I think she's an obvious choice for the favorite. She just brings so much every time she's on. And I agree with what Egg says. It's like, you know, something's going on. It's like she's not just, I feel like you can tell she has a backstory that's there, even though we know like she plays the prostitute. So there's obviously a backstory there. But I think she just comes off with such ease playing this role.
I'm going to go ahead and go with Dolores, only for the fact that she says so much without saying anything at all, really, at points. The stoic facial expression, you can still read the emotions that she's supposed to be feeling all over her face. However, at the end of the episode, not to get ahead of ourselves at all, but her father absolutely steals the first episode. So the update that's causing problems is hit over 200 hosts, which is about 10% of the park's host population. That means there's at least 2,000 active hosts in the park at one time. Ig, so far in the first episode, what character that's not a host, could be cast or could be a newcomer, which one stands out the most to you?
It's going to be Bernard, and then it's going to be Anthony Hopkins, Dr. Ford. Those are the guys that stick out to me. They're the main architects of everything happening behind the scenes. Seeing what they're doing and seeing how much of themselves, how much of their lives they want to instill in doing this world, and the way that they go about it really says a lot to me.
I totally agree. I think when you look at Ford and Bernard, it's like you can tell their whole lives are dedicated to this. They are head first, and there's nothing else going on in their lives but this. They are completely dedicated. But I do like Teresa a lot because she's coming off very strong, and you can tell she's going to be causing issues down the road, in my opinion. So I really liked her a lot, actually.
Yeah, Teresa's great. I have this thing in me where I'm not a fan of the whole perceived rape thing. I always root for the villain. So for me, the Man in Black is he stands out to me the most. He's running around, he's causing havoc. He obviously has his own agenda. I'm enjoying what Ed Harris is doing with the character a lot. One cool little fact that I noticed, we get 2 brief appearances from Stephen Ogg, who's been a big part as Simon on The Walking Dead this season. I mean, talk about having a good year. He gets roles in Westworld and Walking Dead at the same time. Julie, what do you think the Man in Black is after?
I guess my initial thought was he just wants to figure out how the whole park is controlled and be able to take over the hosts. That was the only thing I could think of in that very first episode. Like, what is it that you keep searching for?
So you think he's after world domination?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because he was talking early when they were first coming in on the train that he keeps coming back there. So I initially thought he was going to try and speedrun himself through as many of the scenarios that he's done in the past to try and run into a new thing as fast as he could. It's like, all right, I know how this one goes. I'm going to go here, shoot, kill, sex. And then go to this one, kill, sex, shoot, and just run himself through everything and see if the park presents him new possibilities, or if they're so hardwired into how the adventures are going to go that there's no difference, there's no variable, there's no nothing.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. The host routines and their daily activities, they're called their loop. They seem to reset like once a day or once every 24 hours. What do you think set off Dolores' dad? Was it the picture or was it the update?
Maybe they don't have a good clearing of the browser history on these things. It's known in programming as kind of a ghost in the shell, where you had a piece of programming that was supposedly removed, but it's kind of still there. So I think what it is it's memories, it's learned behavior and things that are in there. So I think it actually is the picture. It's like, I know what this is. Why is it here? Why do I know what it is? Because I don't know what it is, but I know what it is.
I agree, but I also think like the update, because he really went way off script. It was like there was clearly whatever he was saying towards the end there. I mean, that was not in his previous updates or who he was previously.
I think it just manifested itself over time into being able to pull everything together at that finite point, where now all of a sudden he's almost more aware of what's going on. The trick that worked for me in this is I think a lot of the hosts don't necessarily operate as if they are not real. To them, it's real. They are who they think they are. They are Dolores. They are Maeve. They are, to the people that run Westworld, they're machines. They're part of the ride. For Louis Hertham, for Peter Abernathy, I think thinking that he was real and seeing that picture and being able to run that way into it, that's what did it for him. And because he thinks he's real, I think it was actually the picture. I don't think it was the update. I think it was just time and repetitiveness, but still learning about his surroundings and learning what's going on. And the picture came from a previous person that he encountered.
To me, my favorite part of the episode was Hector's attack on the town. Him and his gang ride in. The first thing they do is they blow away the sheriff when they encounter him. I guess the whole point of the attack was to get the safe out of the saloon. Julie, do you think there's anything of significance in the safe?
I guess I didn't really think there was going to be anything in there. I thought it was just a prop.
Cheat codes. There's probably cheat codes in there.
Up, down, left, right, A, B, start, select.
Exactly. You get unlimited ammo and 6 extra lives. You're ready to go.
Knowing that Teddy and Dolores are both hosts, they're not real, does it make you care any less about the relationship, seeming that it's completely scripted?
No, actually it doesn't. And that's the interesting thing about this show, or one of the more interesting things I think about this show, is that even the hosts, and because they're artificial, the way that they're programmed with all the nuances and that they can vary responses, they're kind of set out there to live and go and do their thing. And yeah, they're running on loops made to do the same kind of things every day, but in reality, aren't we all kind of in a loop most of the time, most of us in the world, where you get up and you maybe have a cup of coffee and you go to the bathroom and then you get ready and go to work, and You do your work, and then you come home and kiss the wife, eat some dinner, watch some TV, and then go to bed and start over again. We're all in kind of a loop. Theirs is just programmed to try and interact more with guests that come into the park. It's their job. It's the variables in their loop that they're basically allowed to make their own changes. That's where this really hooks you in and gives you something to care about with the hosts.
No, I agree 100% with Ig because like he just pointed out that we're all in a loop. That was something I realized at some point down the road. I think it really becomes clear the parallel they're trying to make about their lives versus your own life and real life, you know, how you are all on a loop. And 100% right. We do all live a lot of the same ways every single day. Do we say the same words every morning when we wake up or whatever? No, but our actions, our manners, you know, our habits, they're all very much the same. And I agree. I think that it just as compelling to me to see what's going on with their relationship and how it can progress before they get shot again.
Or raped, apparently.
Or raped.
Trampled by horses or bit by snakes. There's a million ways to die in the West.
Yeah, and the bit by snakes, I mean, that's got to be a program thing, right? Because even the snakes are artificial as far as I could tell.
Yeah, I believe we see Ford controlling one in a later episode, so even the snakes are hosts?
Right, but and if you get bit by a fake snake, well, obviously the snakes probably can't hurt a guest, so they're only going to bite hosts. Is it just a programmed response to just lay down and go and shake a little bit and foam at the mouth? I mean, it's pretty well thought out of. Everything in this world is very well thought out, and that's a huge product of Dr. Ford's vision.
The fly on the host visual was used repeatedly through the episode to point out that it was even spoken that they wouldn't even hurt a fly. In the end, Dolores swats and kills the fly off her. What do you think that means for her character?
Well, I think that she's starting to come away from her programming. I think that it's one of those things when you install artificial intelligence, eventually they're going to become intelligent enough to not need you anymore. They'll learn to maintain themselves. They'll learn to do whatever's needed to keep themselves running. And this might be the beginning of the end. It might be Terminator Salvation is on our way here. So I don't think that's where this show is going, because that would be a little lame, I think. But it's working, and I think it's getting a little more self-aware on what's going on.
Again, that first episode, that definitely was sort of the hook for me. As soon as she hit that fly, I was like, oh, this is going places. This is going to start to get good, because it does. It seems like, you know, with an update or whatever, it's all of a sudden you can tell she's starting to not care. She's going to kill a fly or whatever. So where can this lead? Especially if they're not supposed to be programmed to be able to kill anything. Okay, well, this is going to take a turn here.
Yeah, it definitely went against her programming. It was one of the better moments of the first episode, for sure. A strong first episode. Do you think they said everything they wanted to say, Ig?
Well, what I think they did was they wanted to come out, have a strong opening, show you their cast, give you this is what we're about, leave you with a hook so that you'd want to come back. And they nailed it. They did so well with this, because everything from the music to the scenery to all the visuals, be it out in the Westworld itself or inside of the camp where they do all the work on the hosts. Everything is so crisp, so clean, so perfect. I mean, the camera angles even are so great that you wanted nothing more than to watch the next episode immediately upon seeing the first one. So yes, I think they hit their goal. If you sit down and watch this first episode, you will watch the second episode just because.
I agree. I think the score on this whole show is amazing. It's like there's a haunting feel to the music in this. I love all the music in this show. Even there was the one part where I think he was on a train or something, but they pull all the way back and you realize they're in this big room at the headquarters. And I mean, I was just blown away. Like, what is happening here? How is this even going on? I'm completely discombobulated with everything. I obviously get confused a lot. And
We couldn't tell.
I was I was completely like, okay, this is great. And like I said to you just a few minutes ago, when she hit the fly, it kind of gave me that same feel when, Jamie Lannister threw Bran out the window, like where after that first episode, you're like, I got to watch this next episode. Like, I need to see it.
Definitely WTF moment. Like, oh shit, he just threw that little kid out the window.
Right, exactly. And that's how I felt at the end of this. Like, I'm definitely coming back next week.
Ig, the Cynic Radio podcast scale, what do you rate the first episode, the original?
The original Cynic Radio podcast, 8.5. I'm going to give it an 8.5. Strong episode. Some minor problems, but it's more just sometimes you want things explained and there's a reason they haven't explained them yet, but given this episode standalone, 8.5.
I'm not really sure what the scaling is on the Cynic Radio podcast.
1 to 10.
I'm going to go with the 9. I really did. I might even go up to 9.5. I really, really enjoyed this first episode. I mean, it caught me for sure.
You can tell that they wanted to get this one right. They wanted to get their hooks in as many people as possible. This is definitely a binge-worthy show. I mean, you could sit down and literally go from 1 to 10 any day of the week, and it's going to keep you compelled. But this one in particular, they really, really hammered it home. I'll go as high as a 9.5 on it, and I hope that they can reproduce the excitement and the newness that episodes going forward that they did in this one. Everything about this episode was near perfect.
Well, there you go from the Cynic Radio podcast, episode 1 of Westworld, the original. Let's say a 9.25 from the Cynic Radio podcast. This is a great show. Next week, we're going to talk about episode 2. Stick around. We've got some more coming up.
Miss out on that latest viral video? Didn't see the most recent trailer for the next movie coming out? In the dark about what the biggest song in America is? We've got you covered. Every week we scour the internet and look for the latest and greatest. This is What's Up.
What's up for me this week is the YouTube video Kylo Ren Reviews Rogue One, a Star Wars Story. This video is hilarious. Kylo Ren, in scenes from Star Wars The Force Awakens, steps in and gives us his honest review of Rogue One. And the best part about this is Kylo Ren loves his grandfather. It is hilarious. Check it out on YouTube. The channel is Aural Knots, A-U-R-A-L Knots, like astronauts. And it is great. They've got a lot of good content on their channel. It's a lot of fun. Grandfather, that's what's up.
Hey guys, this is Julez, and this is my very first What's Up of 2017. I'm giving a shout out to Scientology, the Aftermath television show. It airs on A&E Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. This show is utterly compelling, I have to tell you. It's an in-depth look at the inner workings of Scientology, and it's hosted by former Scientologists Leah Remini and Mike Rinder as they interview other former members of this religion that have a story to tell about how it's affected their lives and their family lives. I have to tell you guys, every single person I recommended this show to has immediately ended up binge watching all these episodes and were equally glued to each story as I was. And even if you've never heard of Scientology or care about anything about Scientology, it is a absolute must-watch of 2017. I also give a lot of respect to the hosts and everyone involved in this project, as well as A&E, because putting the show out there has certainly put many of their relationships at risk with anyone who might still be in Scientology. So that is my What's Up this week. Check it out, and I promise you won't be disappointed.
Well, Ig and Julez, what's up for me this week is Season 12 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The gang is back starting on January 4th on FX. Dennis, Charlie, Mac, Frank, and Stupid D waste no time this season with their first episode, The Gang Turns Black. When it comes to social commentary on race, no one does it more honest or funny than the lovable narcissists over at Patty's Pub. Always Sunny, Season 12, on FX now. That's what's up. Well, this ought to be interesting for us. Over the course of the 14 episodes that we've done here, we've loved everything we've done. We've loved everything we've covered. We've been big fans of all the content we put on this show. And for once, I'm not. We're going to give you an honest and quick overview of Passengers, starring Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. Now, I went into this movie with high hopes and expectations based on the visual aspect of the previews, the cast. I mean, it looked amazing. So the basic premise of this is Pratt and Lawrence are on a ship headed to Homestead 2. The only problem is they were both in hibernation and they wake up 89 years early. We have a great looking ship, the Avalon, check. We have a great cast, Lawrence, Pratt, and even Fishburne, check. A promising young director, check. Story, not so much. So I'll throw it out to you first, Ig. Visually, what did you think of this movie?
Well, that's the one thing it had going for it. Visually, the movie is stunning. A lot of really good views, a lot of very good use of special effects. The set dressing, the costumes, everything in this worked very well. Unfortunately, that's all that worked very well.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there, Julie. What did you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Chris Pratt was stunning. I love Chris Pratt. And it was a beautifully shot movie, but I agree. That's all I can go with on that.
They're headed through an asteroid field. The ship takes some damage. Jim wakes up. He finds out that out of the 4,000 passengers aboard, he's the only one who wake up. He's got this large ship, well stocked with a lot of things to do. Because when they're due to wake everybody up, I believe it's supposed to be 4 months out before they get to the new colony that they're headed to. So it's fully stocked with food, it's fully stocked with amenities, and he, for the better part of a year, wanders around by himself.
Yeah, he kind of turns into Castaway with Tom Hanks. He grows a big beard and slips into a major depression, only hangs out in the hotel from The Shining with a bartender that isn't real.
Yeah, he has an engineering background, and he drinks a little bit too much. He experiments with a few things, but he mostly wanders around and grows that dreadful beard. He gets an idea. Maybe I should wake somebody else up. He kind of gets taken with Lawrence's character, who is also in hibernation, and he ponders for a while what he should do.
Yeah, and he runs a little bit of a moral dilemma. It's like, it would be wrong, right? Wouldn't it be wrong if I did this? Wouldn't it be wrong? And yeah, it would be wrong, but that didn't slow him down.
Oddly enough, he can't figure out how to get himself back into hibernation, but he can figure out how to wake somebody else up. That was one of the first problems I had with it. And being that they're 80 some odd years, I believe it was 89 by the time he woke her up out, you're essentially taking somebody's life away. I mean, whatever she had planned for wherever they were headed, that's gone now. He's dooming her to live the whole rest of her life out on this stupid ship.
Yeah, because no matter how good a health you're in and everything, she looked to be in her 20s at some point. 100 and teens coming into the new planet, it's not happening. I mean, human bodies just aren't going to last that long.
So, Julie, if you were Jim, would you have woken someone up out of sheer loneliness after a year of wandering around by yourself?
Yeah, but it wouldn't have taken me a year. It would have taken me about 10 minutes.
Where's the off button at?
I can't be alone for that long.
You only waking up one? I mean, are you reading any backstories before you do this? You just...
I mean, I might wake up 10. I need
My
a
only
party.
problem with it is you make the leap and you choose that person. You choose the one particular person that you want to wake up, and what if you hate them? What if you absolutely hate the person that you wake up with? Or they don't like you?
Yeah, they look nice, and all of a sudden you woke up Fran Drescher, and you got to listen to that voice for the next 89 years.
Or just somebody completely disagreeable. I mean, they touch on that a little bit on the Fox's Last Man on Earth show. He finds what he perceives to be the last woman on Earth, and it's this annoying girl that makes him stop at stop signs and park in parking spaces, and she's used proper grammar. It's terrible. I can only imagine that you make the leap, you go against everything that's right in the world, and you wake this person up, and they're just an awful human being. Did you pick out on the just apparent Shining references with the bar and the bartender?
It did look very surprisingly like The Shining, and it would have almost been saving into this movie if when J-Law got up, the bartender wasn't there. So if it had just been a figment of Chris Pratt's imagination to have that bartender there, and she got up and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" That would have been something that might have worked in its favor, but it didn't. I did pick up on it, though. just the color scheme and everything really did feel like The Shining. And the thing is that initially in the movie while I was watching it, I didn't pick up on it. It took a few scenes for me to go, this is familiar. Where is this from? And then all of a sudden just something popped in my head. I'm like, it's The Shining. Oh my God. That was genius, but they overused it.
Out of sheer loneliness, he goes ahead and he makes the plunge and pulls off the biggest dick move of the whole movie, and he wakes another passenger up. It just happens to be Jennifer Lawrence. Jim's only problem in all this is that he lets the bartender in on his grand scheme, who, by the way, is played awesomely by Michael Sheen, probably the bright spot of this movie.
He very well stole this movie. Michael Sheen is amazing, and he's not related to Charlie Sheen, which helps even more.
You're winning just by not being related to Charlie Sheen these days. I think Martin Sheen actually disowned him. In your estimation, what was more flawed about Jim's plans? His intentions, or was it the fact that he shared his scheme with Arthur the robot bartender?
Well, while both are big problems, if you're going to do something bad, you don't tell other people the bad that you're going to do. It's really hard to take back things, and especially with something that has zero possibility of forgetting. A robot like that, they're not going to forget. Anything you tell them, they're going to remember forever. That was the pitfall. That was what did it to him.
Yeah, there was a scene there too where, because they end up becoming a couple and they end up falling in love, and one of them says, well, there's no secrets between us. I think Chris Pratt's character said it, and the bartender just gave him a look. And then, ideally he gets up and he wanders off and he goes to use the bathroom. Julie, would you have shared your intentions with the bartender? Would you have given yourself up like that?
Yeah, I think he probably didn't have a lot of forethought into maybe how it was going to end up. I think, he had nobody else to be talking to, so you're just sort of talking just to have somebody to converse with. So I could see letting somebody in on that. You feel alone anyway, so it's your soulmate at that point.
And he might have forgotten that the bartender's name wasn't Wilson and that he wasn't a volleyball and could actually speak on his own.
Exactly.
That scene where he kind of comes back in the room and his spot is blown up and she's kind of just looking at him, that was the most cringeworthy scene in the whole movie. It's like, how badly are you caught at this point? So Aurora, clearly pissed that Jim wakes her up and starts screaming things like, you murdered me, you took my life away. They go into a War of the Roses like feud where they're not in the same room with each other and they won't speak to each other until the ship starts, some of the systems on the ship start failing. It wakes up one of the crew members, which we get about 5 minutes of Lawrence Fishburne, which really upset me because I really think they could have used more of him in this movie.
They could have, and he did a great job in the limited amount of time he was there. Very few bright spots. This is another one. Lawrence Fishburne's role in this movie, although it was short, it was very good. He did a great job and gave him access that they'd been fighting to get into places in the ship that they hadn't been able to get previously. It's kind of the red herring. It's the thing that kind of makes everything work. It's the one thing that they've been trying to get, and now they get it. So Lawrence Fishburne's a great actor. He did a great job in this movie, but it was very short-lived.
Yeah, Julie, do you think it's a mistake to cast someone like Lawrence Fishburne and pretty much utilize him like that?
No, I think that sometimes cameos are the most poignant parts of movies. Sometimes, especially with a great actor like Lawrence Fishburne, I agree. He can sort of change the dynamic of any movie and any role he's in.
His dying words are, you guys need to fix the ship or everybody aboard's going to die. Jim takes it upon himself to find out what's wrong with the ship. Some really cool visual effects as the ship's failing, especially one where Jennifer Lawrence is swimming in the pool and the water kind of goes up in the air with her when gravity slightly fails.
Yeah, that was a really neat effect. And, swimming for some people is difficult anyway. But can you imagine swimming when the water is going in directions that you don't know where it's going to go? So trying to find your way out to get back into the air so you can breathe. That had to be scary for somebody at that moment. But it's still, the reactions were a little over the top. And that's the thing is some of the stuff in this movie was just campy. And that's where the problems for me arise with it. It's just, this movie was very formulaic.
I get frustrated with movies like that when you can just tell each scene what's going to basically be happening before it happens.
Well, it's riddled with plot holes. You wasted two young, talented actors in the prime of their career. I used to say, there's certain things that you just can't screw up. And how do you screw up a movie with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt in it? And we see how here. Jim takes it upon himself he's going to save everybody aboard. He goes out, he looks around, he finds the source of the problem on the ship. It's some silly door that needs to be open that can't stay open without him being there. He gets blown outside the ship. Of course, we get the always fun tear in the spacesuit, and he begins to die. She decides that he's no longer an asshole and jumps out there and tries to pull him in. They do the old I'm at an umbilical gag as well. And I could see that coming from a mile away as I was watching the movie in the theater. I was like, oh, watch, she's going to run out of umbilical. And sure enough, a foot or two away from Jim, that's exactly what happened.
Oh, I can't reach you.
No. Just out of reach.
Very Titanic. There's no room for you.
And then his tether rolls back to her. She's like, oh, look, another chance. Tug, tug, tug. Oh, let's bring him back inside. I saved you, Jim. Oh, Jim.
There's no, if we're going to go Titanic, there's no room for this movie on the door anywhere. She brings him in. She saves him. They live happily ever after. And everybody, when they begin to wake, get to see the after effects of how they completely destroyed this ship with their planting trees and agriculture.
And raising chickens. They had chickens roaming free around on the main deck of this ship now. There were no birds wandering around on this ship, and now there are. I mean, what are just the... How are the robots that are running around cleaning things on a daily basis, how are they going to function? It's like now they have to run over chicken shit all the time. Come on.
We don't know how long they lived, but we would hope it was the majority of the 89 years that they had left together. How much food could be left in the spaceship by the time these 4,000 people wake up with 4 months left to go?
Yeah, I don't think they were nourished on love alone. They needed to eat. And, I don't know. Do they have replicators or something where they can just grab matter or something? Is this, 24th century Star Trek type stuff? I don't think so.
The critics destroyed this movie. Do you think it was rightly deserved?
It was pretty bad. It's not even in the top 10 worst movies I've ever seen. But based on the amount of money thrown into advertising, because I saw just a ton of trailers and stuff on even just TV for this, they spent some money on advertising, and I think they're going to have some trouble covering all that cost coming back.
How about you, Jules? Do you think the critics were right to rip this movie apart?
Yeah, it definitely didn't live up to the hype that it was surrounding it at all.
Would either of you recommend it to anybody?
I mean, it might be one of those, like if it was on HBO Saturday night in the middle of January, you have nothing else to do.
If you're one of those people that really doesn't like anything and you go see it anyway, you can go see this. But if you care about what you spend your $12 for your seat and your $42 for a little bucket of popcorn, pick something else. Go see Rogue One a third, fourth, fifth time or something, because that's way better. I wouldn't waste your money on this. I've seen worse movies. It's very visually impressive. I don't know if it's available in 3D because I didn't look. I just went and saw it in regular modes. So I can't imagine 3D would save this.
No, I don't think so either. If you're so basically, you're saying if you're sitting alone in your apartment and you're craving human interaction, and so you go spend $10 to sit hopefully near someone in a movie theater, that's when you'd recommend it to somebody.
And even then, only if that's the only one that isn't sold out. Which guaranteed, this will be one that isn't sold out. You can get a seat for this one.
All right, here comes the brutality. What would you rate this thing?
I'm going to be very kind, and give this a 4.
I'm gonna give it a 5 just because of Chris Pratt.
If that's the reason you're going to do it, then I'll give it a 4.5 because of Jennifer Lawrence.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Cynic Radio Podcast. Let's call it 4.5. Passengers in theaters now. In the bargain bin in the DVD aisle very soon. So here we go. We talked about a bad sci-fi movie. Let's talk about our top sci-fi movies. And here's the rub. Our top sci-fi movies cannot include any Star Wars movies, because otherwise that's going to be 1 through 5 for every one of us. Star Wars, maybe not Julie, but Cynic and I definitely just Star Wars, and then Star Wars, and after that probably Star Wars. So we're going to exclude Star Wars, top 5 sci-fi movies, and a little bit of reason why you think each one belongs on the list. So we're going to start at number 5. Julez, hit us. What you got?
I have Minority Report starring Tom Cruise. This movie came out in 2002, and I think that this is a movie to me. Well, actually, every movie I have on my list is one of those, when it comes on, I'll sit down and watch it. It was actually on yesterday, and I sat down and watched it again. I love it. It's just, I love the storyline of it. I like the idea that you could be arrested and put in basically this state of unconsciousness for however long based on the thought of doing a crime. It was just, I don't know. I just love this movie. It was just great acting by everybody in it, and it's just one of my top faves.
All right, Cynic, number 5.
I try not to do this, but mine's a combo of Rise and Dawn of Planet of the Apes. With the third installment, War of Planet of the Apes, right around the corner, and James Franco aside, I cannot get enough of these movies. It's without a doubt some of the best CGI I've ever seen. Andy Serkis's Caesar, he steals every single scene he's in. I mean, both of them are solid films, and the third one looks like it's going to be great too.
And, funny enough, for me, it's also Planet of the Apes, but it's the 1968 version Planet of the Apes. And the reason why, this really did a lot of things for movies and movies in the sci-fi genre. I don't think that we would have Star Wars or even any incarnation of Star Trek without Planet of the Apes. The way that they made their costumes work, the way that they told their story, everything that was going on in that movie, and especially the reveal at the end that they were still on Earth just in the future. I think this gave a new breath to the sci-fi genre as far as movies were going. So 1968 Planet of the Apes for me, that's my number 5. All right, number 4. Julez, hit us up.
I'd like to preface that while you might not realize the movies I'm choosing are sci-fi, they are. Okay. So number 4, I have RoboCop. I saw this movie back in the day, and I think I might have only been 12 or 13 when I saw this movie, and it stuck with me hardcore. It was a scary thought. The violence in it was just so shocking to me, but it was so kind of exhilarating when I left the movie theater. It was just a movie that stayed in my head for a long time, and definitely on my top list.
My number 4 is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. You can't go wrong with this movie. Awesome visual effects with the T-1000. I mean, it was way ahead of its time. Robert Patrick plays a great villain with little to no dialogue. Probably Arnold's last viable movie as an action hero. Linda Hamilton she just plays a powerful, scary hero lead. Without a doubt, the last bit of great music we'll probably ever get out of Guns N' Roses. Terminator 2 is amazing.
Yeah, number 4 for me is going to be Avatar, 2009. Super tall Smurfs. Best use of 3D I've seen. Some of the best CGI that's ever been done. This movie had great storytelling. It drew you in. It set new records. It was very, very good. So my number 4 is Avatar. I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of fun in it. I mean, and I don't know, they created an entire language for this movie. Now, I understand they're probably going to make more of these now, but to create an entire language for, at the time, is known as one movie, and it is fully fleshed out. They have an entire language. They can say anything. That's amazing to me, and to do that sold me.
I kind of hope it's a one-off. I know it's coming. I mean, it's the highest grossing movie of all time, so there's going to be sequels. But I think the movie could have stood alone for the test of time by itself without even adding to it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the movie, but I did respect the innovative nature of it.
And back to Julez here, by the way, RoboCop is a great sci-fi movie, so you don't have to preface that. I'm with you. RoboCop is definitely a sci-fi movie. All right, moving on. Number 3. Hit us up.
My number 3 is another Chris Pratt movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. I knew nothing about Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not any sort of comic book fan or anything like that. I just, when it came out, I heard it was really good, and my husband wanted to see it, and I really had no interest in seeing it. And he sort of dragged me along to it, and I watched it, and I immediately was just the humor in this movie. It just caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it to be any sort of humorous movie at all. And he's amazing in it. And all the characters in this are amazing. I love Thandie Newton not Thandie Newton, Zoe Saldana. She's awesome. And Groot, all of it. It's just amazing. Excellent, excellent movie.
Dance off, bro. What do you got at number 3?
Number 3 for me, probably the least mainstream of all my picks, is Looper. Just full of innovative ideas. I mean, you can never go wrong with JGL, Bruce Willis, Emily Blunt. A solid, innovative movie, great cast, really, really cool visual effects. Some of the makeup they put on Joseph Gordon-Levitt to make him look like Bruce Willis was a little distracting at points, but love the concept of the time traveling. Everything about the movie it's got so much rewatchability.
Yeah, number 3 for me is going to be Inception, another JGL thing. I really enjoyed this movie, and the dream within a dream within a dream within a dream thing works. And the thing is the further you go in, the longer time goes inside the dream, where no time is going outside. I liked the aspects of this. The visuals were amazing. The things that they could realize that they could do because they were in a dream really sold it for me. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and this is great. So is Leonardo DiCaprio. This was a lot of fun. That's my number 3, Inception. All right, heading to the top 2. Number 2, what we got?
Well, my number 2 is based on a lot of nostalgia. I'm sure nobody's ever heard of this movie, but it came out in 1984, and it is called Night of the Comet. A nice B movie. Have either of you ever heard of this movie?
I love that movie. I have seen it
a number of times. Oh my God, I love it. Thank you for knowing this movie, because to me, this was like the original Walking Dead Valley Girl style. It's awesome. Catherine Mary Stewart is in this, and I remember coming home from school and watching this movie over Christmas break, and I watched it like 5 times. It was just the idea of being some of the last people on Earth and not really knowing where to begin or what to do, being in a shopping mall, having awesome 80s montages of dancing around with guns, and then trying to fight off the Walking Dead type of zombies that were out there, and then having to deal with the actual people, the bad people that are left. I loved it. Amazing.
It was so much fun. It was a good movie. I really enjoyed it. And it is a B movie, but it's one of those I'll stop and watch most of the time when it's on. And for me, it holds up. All right, Cynic, number 2.
Number 2 for me is The Matrix. Such a cool, hip concept. Everybody in the movie looks sharp. I mean, excellent characters. Neo is flying around as Superman at the end. Couldn't get enough of this movie. I mean, it's a can't-miss idea, right? It should spawn 1 or 2 really successful follow-up films. Why didn't they make sequels for these?
Yeah, we could only wish they hadn't, because the sequels were bad. But The Matrix itself is such a powerful movie. It's so great. Did a lot for sci-fi. Did a lot for Keanu Reeves himself.
Once again, though, like Avatar, probably should have been a standalone film. If you don't have a great idea to follow up something like The Matrix, maybe not do it.
Agreed. So my number 2 is going to be Blade Runner. Harrison Ford's first step out of Han Solo in a sci-fi movie. I really enjoyed this. It was him as Rick Deckard trying to hunt down some replicants. Rutger Hauer is powerful in this movie. Sean Young does a great job, and Daryl Hannah is just seductive as Pris. This movie just shows what a dystopia we could end up in if we don't start watching ourselves. But it's a really good movie, and if you can find the director's cut of it, it's a lot of fun. It's very good. And here we go. The top spot, non-Star Wars sci-fi movies. Julie, what's your number 1?
Okay. Now, you guys are probably going to kick me off the show for this choice.
Where's that button? Where's the ejector seat?
But to me, it was a movie of the week. I mean, does
with
that
people
count?
in it, and dialogue.
of the week.
Oh, no.
Movie of the week. So she's going TV movie. Here
Yeah,
we go.
I'm going to dial it back because to me, this is where I did get into sci-fi. I'm going with V, The Final Battle.
I love it.
I love V. I have actually bought V, all of those DVDs, actually a couple times because I even have scratches on them from watching them too much. I loved V. The idea of peeling faces off, aliens coming and taking over and just being a rebel, and it was an amazing movie. Diana.
I'm convinced
the
it's
leader.
not a sci-fi movie as much as a documentary, because I'm pretty sure that Mr. Trump might be from that planet.
I
He
think
kind of
you're
looks
onto
like a
something.
lizard person a little bit. No, that movie's great. It's a lot of fun. Robert Englund did a great job in that
Oh,
series.
yes. Yes.
What did you think of the remake that they came out with a few years ago?
Wasn't feeling it. I did not feel it. I don't think other people did because it got canceled. It didn't. And my brother and I, we were so excited at the idea that it was coming out. I mean, we just couldn't believe it. And then to me, it failed. It just didn't have that. I don't know if part of it is just, the memories of how you felt when you first started watching it, or it just didn't capture me in the way the first one did.
Messing with the nostalgia. You never want to do that.
Yes.
All right, Cynic, number 1, top spot.
Well, this is kind of a mainstream pick, but one of the most quotable movies of all time. Do you like Huey Lewis and the News? My number 1 movie is Back to the Future. Without a doubt, Michael J. Fox's best role, and to me, he will always be Marty McFly. It's one of those films that you have to watch every single time it's on. You can't get enough of Marty McFly. You can't get enough of Doc Brown. I love Back to the Future.
I got to ask, do you like Back to the Future 1, 2, or 3 the best?
Notice I only said Back to the Future.
Oh, okay. I love Back to the Future.
That would be
I think
one.
I like Back to the Future
One
2
only.
better.
That's the only spot that exists there.
Blasphemy. Oh, God.
Oh, 3 is where it's at, isn't it? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Back to the Future, the original. Hey, your cousin Marvin Berry,
Jules,
calling with the new sound you're looking
You are
for.
my density.
My number 1 has got to be. You are my density. My number 1. I had a hard choice. I was between 2 movies. The one I think I'm going to downvote and just throw it off my list is Alien. Alien was very good, but my number 1 I think has to be Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Here, number of reasons. First of all, that movie saved Star Trek. And as much as I'm a Star Wars person, Star Trek has its place in sci-fi and needs to exist. You got to have the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, and Star Trek has got to be the dark side. But Star Trek II, just with its twists and turns and its amazing actress with Ricardo Montalban, you couldn't go wrong. They did so well with this. It was basically The Empire Strikes Back of Star Wars. They did a great job, and so Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, that's got to be my top 1 non-Star Wars.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I really did like Wrath of Khan. Search for Spock was pretty good too, but after that it was all downhill. So I think they really peaked with Wrath of Khan as far as the original Star Trek crew movies.
So there you go. That's our top 5 non-Star Wars sci-fi movies. We're going to do some more top 5s out in the future. Look forward to those. So now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for Really. I'd explain it. Just listen. You'll get it.
My really this week goes out to, and hold on to your hats for this one. We have most definitely covered some messed up things in our time doing the really segment. But this one left me like, what the fuck? There's a new, and I'm just going to come right out and say this, mental illness that has surfaced called transabled, medically known as body integrity identity disorder. This entails perfectly healthy people intentionally injuring themselves in hope of becoming permanently disabled. The article I read talked about a young man named One-Arm Jason who spent months researching ways to remove his arm and trained himself in first aid so he wouldn't bleed to death before medical attention could come. The professionals who specialize in this state we define transabled as a desire or the need for a person who identifies as an able body to transform his or her body to obtain a physical impairment. the person could want to become deaf, blind, an amputee, or paraplegic. With so many soldiers coming home missing limbs, or accident survivors who no longer have use of large portions of their body, I have to sincerely ask you, what the fuck is wrong with you? Really? Are your lives so boring that you need to seek attention in this manner? Or you're such an attention-seeking loser that you would do this to yourself? To me, it's just the epitome of selfishness. It's also really twisted and slightly pathetic. So do you, the transabled. Really?
Hey guys, it's me, Julez, and my first really of 2017 goes out to Timothy Blake, a 28-year-old from West Virginia who was found in an Ohio Walmart spraying semen from a syringe on 2 women while they shopped. Yes, everybody, you heard me correctly. This guy would walk into a Walmart, jerk off into a syringe, and then walk up to unsuspecting women and shoot them with the syringe full of semen. I have no words for this. This guy is disgusting. It says that he admitted to having a fetish of spraying women with semen from a syringe, according to police. He also said that he uses egg whites, egg yolks, and flour, or even spit. This makes no sense to me. I mean, is he trying to shoot them with baby batter or cake batter? I'm completely confused. All I know is this year starting off with a really Timothy Blake, because that is disgusting.
Really, for me, this week goes out to the 4 young people in Chicago who kidnapped and tortured a young 18-year-old man having mental health issues in some racially charged hate crime. These 4 people were charged last Thursday in Chicago with a hate crime after Facebook Live videos showed them tying up a young man, assaulting him, and threatening him as they yelled obscenities about Donald Trump. Look, people, I get that you're all mad about Donald Trump and everything, but to go find a mentally challenged young boy and beat him up because you're mad that Donald Trump got elected, that's not how we fix this, everybody. This isn't what we do. These actions are reprehensible. The racism has no place in our world. Let's wake up, let's unite, and let's get through these next 4 years together, and let's do it without picking on the mentally challenged. So to you 4 young kids who are 18, and 23 and about to throw your lives away, really? So that's going to do it for episode 14 of the Cynic Radio Podcast. We talked about Westworld. We talked about how bad Passengers was. We talked about some of our favorite sci-fi movies. And pretty soon we'll be talking about some more things that you're sure to love. I'm Igor. That's been Cynic. With us is our great friend Julez. We had a good time talking. We'll be seeing you next week. And until then, send your comments, questions, concerns, and a list of your already failed New Year's resolutions to cynicradio@gmail.com. Find us at cynicradio.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/cynicradio. And look for us on Twitter at cynicradio. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at cynicradio.com. Available for download on iTunes.
And my friends and family were like, what do you even know about these guys?